Blog Talk Radio.
Whether you like it or don't like it, sit down and look at it because it's the best going today. Woo!
This is professional wrestling's longest reigning wrestling talk show. We are now, as we have always been, by the fans, for the fans. And now, we're more interactive than ever. You are in the epicenter, and this is the interactive interview.
Wrestling fans, let's get ready to rumble!
All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Interactive Interview, Interactive Wrestling Radio, right here on WrestlingEpicenter.com and Blog Talk Radio, and for those listening in the archives on YouTube. Our intro is going to take us an hour and a half from now on, I think. James Walsh, joined as always by Mr. Patrick Kelly.
Howdy, howdy.
And is Mr. Nick Knoll with us?
Yes, I am. Yes, he is.
All right, we got a lot to talk about tonight, guys. We have a big show ahead of us of sorts. Kevin Knight, who has been a guest of ours in the past, is going to come on for a quickie. We're just going to promote his upcoming event and get his take on what's going on with the wrestling and the Hall of Fame. I'm sure he's got some opinions based on our last interview. Just a quickie tonight, maybe about 10 minutes. And then...
Okay, stupid question.
Yeah.
Stupid question. Have they announced anybody else for the Hall of Fame, or is it still just Michaels?
Well,
still just Michaels.
Still just Michaels. Now, I have thoughts on that because they're dropping names that they haven't dropped on TV in a while. The name Bruno Sammartino was dropped this week. So I don't know if they're hinting, because that's long overdue, but it was Bruno's choice not to go in. But there you go.
Right.
So who knows? I mean, Cole compared The Miz to Bruno Sammartino this week, for those who didn't catch the reference. So
wow.
That's what's going on, yeah.
Well, here's the thing, James. You're talking about Michael Cole. This is a guy who probably picked up that History of the WWE Championship book, looked who had the longest title reign, and probably couldn't pick Bruno Sammartino out of a lineup.
He's easy to pick out of a lineup. He's the one going to... Seriously, now I have an honest question, and I love Bruno. He's a great guy. He was in a great interview. But why did they pick him to be an announcer?
Well, because Bruno is, at the time, the most popular wrestler in the history of that whole company. There was no one that ever came close to Bruno, so they wanted him to be involved some way. You know, and he probably was more comfortable being an announcer than being someone who was being a manager or something.
Well, yeah, because babyface managers rarely work, so I could see that. I mean, it would fizzle quickly.
Yeah, and you couldn't turn Bruno Sammartino heel.
No. I mean, they wouldn't boo him. In New York, they would not boo him. Nothing they could do.
No way.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it. They wanted him there. I think they wanted him when he was on commentary. He could kind of give rubs to, the next big babyface they saw coming up, and like, oh, this guy's got, Bruno's seal of approval.
And he wasn't a terrible announcer, even with the heavy accent.
Yeah.
I'm sure. How much you want to bet Vince calls Bruno every year, asking him to join the Hall of Fame?
Yeah. I guess it depends on what Vince's mood is at the time, because the way Vince hits me is he has got to be the most mood-swinging guy in all the world. There are times where he comes up and appears to be this kind, generous man, the other times he comes off as a total asshole. I know Tony Atlas won't be happy with me calling him that again, but look, some of the things Vince does make you think he's a fucking asshole.
He's a weird duck. I'll say that. He's not a normal human being by any stretch of the imagination. Even people that like him will tell you he's not a normal human being by any stretch of the imagination. And I think James, are you still there? Okay, I think James jumped off the line for a second to go get our guest for the evening. But, what was I going to say? I'm blanking here. So, yeah, Hall of Fame. We only have Shawn Michaels in there now. And Shawn is a big, big entry that definitely deserves it. I don't think anybody's going to fight that. I'm just wondering, who could they put in that isn't already in it? And obviously we talked about Savage. But has he mended fences with Vince?
Well, I mean, the thing I've been hearing for a while is it might be a very WCW or NWA heavy year because they will be in Atlanta. There's been talk that they're in negotiations with Sting. Lex Luger's name has been tossed around. The Four Horsemen, which will be represented, I guess, by Arn Anderson and Barry Windham, has been a name that's been dropped. Ron Simmons.
These are all.
Speaking of.
These are all very possible names for the Hall of Fame. And joining us on the line right now is the IWF trainer, who we said would be joining us tonight, and I want to get his take on the Hall of Fame this year as well. Joining us is Kevin Knight. Kevin, how you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you?
Doing great. Last time we had you on, it was an absolute blast, so I thought we'd bring you on for a quicker version. But we'll talk a little bit about what's going on in wrestling right now and what's going on with the IWF, because it looks like you guys are running quite a few shows of late.
Yeah, we're getting ready for our 2011 wrestling year. Our live events kick off this Friday night, January the 28th, 8 p.m. at IWF Center in the town now known as Woodland Park, New Jersey.
Did they change it from West Patterson?
They changed it from West Patterson to Woodland Park. They've been voting on it year after year after year, and it finally went through last election, but we are in the same spot in whatever you want to call it, Woodland Park, West Patterson, New Jersey. Just look us up. You'll find us. So our live events for this year kick off this Friday night, 8 p.m., and our events will continue every 2 weeks thereafter for the rest of the year.
Very cool. Now, is this the first time you've run that many shows?
Well, we used to do the live events on the last weekend of every month on a Friday and then a new event on a Saturday. So this year we're just going to do the live events every other week. It'll give our wrestlers and our fans a little bit of some breathing room, but we also host private kids' birthday party functions at IWF Wrestling Center where we do a mini 3-match live event as well as give pizza and juice and drinks to all the guests. So with our birthday party events, in addition to our regular full 2-hour 7-match live events, we do approximately 60 to 70 shows per year. So we keep pretty busy.
That's pretty cool. And
that sounds like a lot more fun than Chuck E. Cheese.
Absolutely. Chuck E. Cheese, hey, every kid has gone to a birthday party or has had a birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese. So an IWF wrestling party is something that is definitely new and different and exciting, and a party the kids will talk about for the rest of their lives.
And that is certainly something different. I mean, do you let the kids get up in the ring or anything like that? Or
just the birthday boy. This way it's special for him. He gets in the ring, gets to pose with the wrestlers, hold the championship belts. His parents and family and friends can take pictures, and it's a blast. Better than partying with the mouse at Chuck E. Cheese, like you said. So
that's very cool. Yeah, I remember the only birthday party I remember was one we had at George Washington Elementary there in New Jersey. I can't remember exactly the town, but it was like a balancing beam, and they had crash pads out, and everybody was jumping off the balancing beams onto the crash pads and doing
there you go
on each other. So there you go. You remember the odd ones more than the usual.
Yes,
so.
that is definitely correct.
Alrighty. So, big show coming up this week, and I wanted to ask you a couple things, because I'm sure you got opinions on it. And we're talking a little bit this week about the Hall of Fame, because a couple weeks ago they announced that Shawn Michaels was the first inductee, and since then they've kind of backed away from mentioning any names on who's going to go in. I'm not quite sure why they started so early, but I guess it was to drive the ticket sales of the Hall of Fame because they went on sale shortly thereafter. But what is your take on somebody as young as Shawn Michaels going into the Hall of Fame? And, I mean, I know it's different than the NFL. We have to be retired for 7 years before you're even in consideration. But what do you think of somebody so young going in? And do you think that this is going to be a big year for the Hall of Fame? Are we going to see these guys that I'm sure you heard when we pulled you on, like the WCW faithful, like Arn Anderson and them going in?
Well, Shawn Michaels is definitely worthy of entering the Hall of Fame. And I guess as far as star power goes and having a main event type induction ceremony, that one headliner that they need every year, he is definitely one of the true top headliners that is retired, that is left to induct, where you've had in recent years Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Stone Cold. Yeah, that's true. They did have a co-headlining, but, you know, Shawn Michaels stands on his own as far as selling tickets to that event and making sure people go out and buy the Hall of Fame DVD, or I guess they include it in the WrestleMania DVD. And it's a good way to start to build up some hype for WrestleMania, and then maybe keep the fans wondering, geez, since Shawn Michaels is going to be inducted WrestleMania weekend, will he make an appearance at WrestleMania in some way, shape, or form? So who knows about that. But, yeah, I agree. There should be some type of WCW involvement since WrestleMania in the Hall of Fame. This year is in Atlanta, and starting off with the Horsemen, that would be something that I know I would enjoy. Sure you guys would too. Currently right now, I mean, I know Ric Flair's already in the Hall of Fame, so I don't know how they would do it, if they would induct the individual members or induct them as a group. But, I mean, I'm sure with Ric Flair involved in TNA, he would not be allowed to appear at the Hall of Fame ceremony for the WWE. So who knows? I mean, maybe it is just Barry Windham and Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard and J.J. Dillon, since Rick technically is already in. Maybe he wouldn't need to be there, but I'm sure the longtime fans wouldn't mind. I mean, they appreciate the credentials of the other members that made that group what it was. It was all of them together that made it special. And that'd be good for us longtime fans to get to enjoy.
Very cool, very cool. And I got to ask you, I know you're a New Jersey guy, and I know you're a sports guy. How pissed were you on Sunday?
Oh, wow. Well, it would have been nice if somebody told the Jets that the game started at 6:30 instead of 8:30, but they didn't deserve it. I mean, they played terrible for the first 2 quarters. They were very lucky to get that field goal with about a minute to go in the second quarter right before halftime, and they played great in the second half, but unfortunately it takes 60 minutes of football to win, and they just did not have it. So, yes, I was upset, but, you know, not too upset because they just didn't deserve it. It wasn't like, you know, any one little thing happened that went wrong. I mean, they just couldn't tackle anybody in the first half. But I you know, now that you mention the Jets, I think it would be amazing maybe to have Rex Ryan as a special guest referee or guest manager at a wrestling event. How great would he be? He'd be very entertaining.
Would he be a great referee, or would he be a heel?
That kind of stuff.
Oh, he'd be a heel manager. I mean, he is a great talker, and he definitely does a great job in selling the product of the Jets. I think it was for this past year that just ended, for the first time, I think ever, the sale of Jets jerseys is actually in the top 10 of all the teams in the NFL, and a lot of it has to do with Rex just flapping his gums, which is what it's about. You have to sell the product, and he does a great job of doing that.
I think Rex Ryan might be one of our show hosts, like kryptonite here. Nick, are you there?
Yeah. Look, I like members of the Jets team. I don't like Rex Ryan as a coach, because I think if you're going to be a guy that cuts wrestling promos, you should be a wrestler, not an NFL coach.
Hey, there you go.
Did you ever see the thing that they made a big deal about? Did you ever watch that video of the foot fetish stuff?
I actually did not. No, I did not.
It is so stupid. She's sitting in the car with her feet kind of hanging up, and he's crouching down and approaching her feet. It's just bizarre and stupid and not worth getting upset about. But it's just weird. If you ever have the chance, just type it in on YouTube. It's there, and it's not even worth.
Hey,
I'll be honest.
Whatever.
Anything that has Rex Ryan's name on it and the word fetish is not something I want to watch. No offense.
That's a very good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so I do have to ask you before we let you go. We kind of had a little bit of a bleak outlook on wrestling when we last had you on, and we were kind of saying that MMA is taken over and the young generation doesn't want to be wrestlers. And I know it's only been maybe 3-4 months since that time, but have you noticed any kind of shift at all, or do you think that's still where we're at?
Well, IWF Wrestling School is doing well. We started a whole crop of new students at the beginning of the month, and we have another crop of new students that'll be starting our next session at the beginning of February. So as far as we go, wrestling is still alive and well, but yeah, I still think that UFC and mixed martial arts, as far as competing for the entertainment dollar and young athletes, you know, in their late teens and early 20s looking to get into some type of fighting sport, you know, many of them now no longer going to boxing, no longer going to wrestling. I think a lot of them are going to mixed martial arts training, and even just a lot of the fitness centers and gyms around offering MMA classes and workout and sparring sessions. So it is something that's definitely woven into pop culture, including the clothing line that the UFC has with Tap Out and the Affliction clothing line. It's just something that is hip and current and fashionable and modern, and professional wrestling just isn't. I mean, professional wrestling now comes off as, you know, oh, that was so 1990s. And we're, you know, boxing. Yeah.
Yeah, I hate to say that. One of my ex-girlfriends, and I don't have that many, but one of them, when I said I was a wrestling fan, she's like, I didn't even know they still did that. That's so passé. I'm like,
see that?
Really? I'm like, did you really think it just went away just because it's not talked about? You know, when
it's funny too, because every now and then I'll go to a TGI Fridays or a restaurant to watch the UFC pay-per-views, which are held once a month on a Saturday night, and it is amazing how crowded these places are when they air the UFC pay-per-views. And it's funny, like the only remaining bar or restaurant that carries WWE pay-per-views is Hooters, and how outdated and how yesterday is Hooters. So it figures that that's the only place that airs wrestling pay-per-views. Meanwhile, UFC is on in every hip bar and club and night spot and restaurant, and it just goes, you know, a long way of showing where things are as far as, you know, us wanting to watch our fighting sport, you know. And
well, I've always wondered how well, because I've seen UFC pay-per-views advertised in movie theaters as live events, and I've always wondered if they do well doing that, because I always found that fascinating.
I'm sure they do. I mean, they have just struck a chord with society and with what, you know, the demographic between the ages of 18 to 34, you know, they are king. I mean, the WWE has kids watching, which is great, but they need to do something to spark some interest within that age 18 to 34 demographic, because that demographic is watching UFC. And I know the WWE claims that they aren't competition. Technically, I do agree, because they're not the same product, but, you know, they are competing for the same eyeballs to focus on the TV screen while their shows are on, and UFC, you know, is doing amazing. And the
when you watch the ratings, I mean, UFC might not do that great of ratings from the TV show, but the buy rates are just incredibly astronomical, and that...
Oh, their pay-per-views, I mean, some of their pay-per-views do over 1 million buys regularly, And that's on a Saturday night when more people are watching in group settings or at bars or restaurants, and the WWE pay-per-views are on a Sunday night where everybody has work and school the next day, so less people are watching in groups, and the WWE pay-per-views domestically are doing less than 100,000 buys, which is the worst in their history. And the TNA pay-per-views, oh boy, they're doing like 6,000 to 8,000 pay-per-view buys. Yeah,
you can count the TNA buys by like a show of hands.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if it's just that, you know. Well, I mean, I would go, you know, and say that TNA is a bad product. Some of what WWE does is a little bit mind-boggling, but I think it's just a fact now that wrestling is just not hip, current, or cool, and a lot of people wouldn't be caught dead watching it or admit that they watch it, and that's just something that, who knows, things are cyclical. Maybe it will come back into fashion and in vogue someday soon, hopefully. We all want it to succeed. We're all fans. We want to see it doing well, so hopefully things will turn around very soon.
There you go. Well, I won't keep you much longer. I just wanted to thank you for coming on, and let's see, could you pick me a winner for the Super Bowl? And nothing to do with wrestling, but pick me a winner.
Well, since the Jets were eliminated this past Sunday, losing the AFC Championship game, I will probably not be watching the Super Bowl too intensely. Maybe I'll just watch for the commercials, but I don't know. I think Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers have something going on, so I'll take the Packers.
As will I. I think they're red hot. Aaron Rodgers has been just incredible in the playoffs, and
just looks like, you know, it may not be, you know, it's not always the best team that wins. It's just the hottest team at the right place at the right time, and it seems to be them. 3 road wins going to the Super Bowl, so
I mean, look
they
at the
could pull off number 4.
New York Giants did the same thing a few years ago. My team.
Yeah, the Giants
that's right.
the Cardinals a few years ago. I mean,
yep.
the Cardinals didn't win it, but you know nobody would have put them there at the beginning of the season. So
that's it. Go Pack. Go Cheeseheads.
All right, man. And for those who want more information, they can check out IWFWrestling.com and catch you on Facebook as well. Correct?
Yep, you got it. Look us up. You could look up Kevin Knight on Facebook and Twitter, or Wrestling IWF on Facebook and Twitter, and WrestlingIWF.com, and there we are, Independent Wrestling Federation in New Jersey.
Very good. And I have to ask, though, say it ain't so. Is it true Jim Powers did call it a career?
Yeah, Jim, pretty banged up over the years. He always put in a solid effort in the ring. I mean, he gave it his all every time he competed. He may have not always been the biggest star on the card, but he was always one of the hardest working stars on the card. So fortunately, Jim, who did some instructing and did some wrestling with the IWF, has called it a career, but hopefully, you know, when he recovers from a few of his recent injuries, he'll still make some guest appearances and autograph sessions at IWF live events, as well as continue to be a guest instructor at IWF Wrestling School. So when I hear from Jim, who doesn't live all that far from me, he lives about 5 minutes away from me, when I get together with him soon, we'll pass along all the information to you guys and let you know what the young stallion is up to.
Very cool. Stay in contact, Kevin. Always appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work, and talk to you again real soon.
Thanks a lot. There's
Thank you.
Your boy right there. There's Kevin Knight from my old home state of New Jersey. And that was interesting. Always nice to get the take from one of the instructors of wrestling. I mean, it's great to get their take on how they are perceiving the current environment. And unfortunately, there's not much of an environment to compliment out there right now.
Yes. Speaking of the current environment of professional wrestling, we have a caller calling in, and I'm not sure. What's Ben Benyu's area code?
His area code is 303.
That would be him calling in right now. Ben, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, Ben.
Hey, what's up, man?
Extremely energetic entrance. I will say this, before Ben gets started, it's going to be incredibly difficult at times to tell the difference between Nick and Ben. And when we all listen, I want people to keep that in mind, okay? Because they do have very similar voices at times.
Are you serious? I'm still here. I'm excited.
I am somewhat serious. Yeah. By the way, Ben might be. How you doing? Are you a little jet lagged?
I actually didn't get on my plane today. I had another day of work ahead of me today. I postponed for a day and got a 10-hour paycheck instead. And I got this one guy who I work with. Every time I work with him, I constantly get off work after I'm supposed to, and today was no different. So nice to know that the more things change, the more they stay the same.
The more things change, the more they stay. And, yeah, I got to tell you, Ben, the last time we had you on, man, we talked a little bit about the good times of what was ahead of us, and unfortunately that flaked out pretty quick. So
yeah, it did.
Yeah, we were talking about how great it was. The Monday Night Wars were coming back, and maybe this would be the spark, and then nothing.
Well, it's like when you guys were talking earlier, and you brought up TNA pay-per-views. I actually had to stop and say, wait, that company exists?
Whoa.
There's a rival?
Maybe they won't
honestly,
sound much alike.
It's just, I can't deal with. One of my friends still watches TNA all the time. He asks me if I'm watching, and I'll be like, no, I'm busy. What are you doing? I'm getting blackout drunk. Or I'm lying in bed, with a book. It's more entertaining than watching TNA product.
Oh, wow.
Okay, when was the last time you actually watched it?
I think the last time I actually actively watched the TNA product was the Hardcore Justice pay-per-view.
All right, well, that's not fair. I think, to be fair, it's been months. They've revamped the product a great deal. I think anyone that says that, I think the last couple of months they've actually really taken 4 key steps back to where they were before the Monday Night War. I don't think it's fair in summer to say that oh, do they exist?
In my defense, I'm usually scheduled to close Thursday nights, so there's very little TNA watching for me in general.
Okay,
I wouldn't.
It's kind of the opposite
out
for
of my
me,
way.
where my work schedule. Yeah, it's kind of the opposite for me, where my work schedule makes it so that I can't watch Raw usually, and SmackDown. It's on Friday, so I don't even bother. So TNA is the only wrestling show I even can watch, given my schedule.
Yeah, I can understand that. That's why I pretty much watch Raw religiously and don't get a whole lot out of the way of very little NXT. And who watches that anyway? That's online now.
Yeah.
But,
It's still there?
No, they post it on YouTube.
I'll tell you though, I'll go out of my way to watch Superstars. Still, that one I will go out of my way to watch when it's on, even though it's also on Thursdays, because it's an hour of simplistic wrestling that I like. There's no story, there's nothing.
But it's also on late, though. That's what you have to realize is that you probably catch the second showing thereof at 11 or whatever time.
Almost always catch the second showing.
That's when I watch it as well, because it's kind of like, all right, I don't want to go to bed yet, even though I have to be up in 5 hours, and it's either watch this or reruns of Cheers or something. So I'll just pump this on for a little while. So
WTN also puts it on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. So that's the perfect time. That's when you're supposed to be watching it.
I wish they would do that more often. I don't understand why both wrestling companies, and WWE is guilty of it too, have given up on any kind of weekend wrestling aside from pay-per-views. I don't get it. WCW Saturday Night was a staple for 20 years.
And that's when you're going to get your best audience, especially if you're WWE, you're in a contract here with NBC Universal. I'm pretty sure NBC can afford you an hour in which they're not showing Saved by the Bell reruns to put you on Saturday morning.
Well, in WWE's case, if they want to stay PG and go after the kids' audience, what do kids sit inside and do all day on a Saturday? They watch TV. That's what I did.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah. It was that followed by American Gladiators.
I'm going to give WWE a break here, and I'm actually going to say this. We say, oh, it's so simple. Let's go on Saturday. For all we know, they've pitched that to their networks, and they've all said, no, we want you on Monday nights. We want you in prime time. No, we're not going to move you to Saturday. No, look, Saturday's kind of like when we do our Law & Order replays. That's when we do our this, that. For all we know, WWE would love to go on Saturday night right now, yet the USA or NBC Universal is saying, no, we're not going to move you.
Well, there's that, but I don't think that we're really saying let's move Raw to Saturday. I think what we're saying is, whatever happened to WWF Mania or Shotgun Saturday Night, or the more popular one for me anyway was WCW Saturday Night, or even WCW had the Saturday morning show, Power Hour and Pro were on Saturday mornings. I mean, these were, for me, that was pretty much from age, 7, 8. That was the only reason I bothered waking up before like 10 a.m. On the weekends, because I had to be up for 9:05 to watch the Pro.
And again,
you used to get great storyline stuff too when you saw these things. I mean, I'll never honestly forget one of the reasons I knew about Gorilla Monsoon's big push as WWF president was from watching him work with Todd Pettengill on Mania every Saturday morning.
Yep.
I mean, you actually got development to storylines that I don't want to say you felt like an insider, but you felt more intelligent than the regular guy who skipped out on the Saturday morning show.
And I think that's true, and I think that's what we were all hoping for out of TNA's reaction show, was the chance for a secondary show to push the storylines along. But they went about it in a very different way. I give them credit for trying something, but like I said a few weeks ago, I think when you're dealing with wrestling fans, and TNA does try to present themselves as a more adult-oriented wrestling show. That doesn't mean pornography or anything, but it means that it's not as quote-unquote PG as the WWE. When they try to present themselves as such, they will have the low attention span redneck audience that's going to be like, Martha, this is a wrestling show, but nobody fighting, and then just change the channel.
Yep.
So.
And I'll be honest, I enjoyed Reaction a lot of times more than I did Impact.
Did you really?
Yeah, there were periods where I thought, you know what, I really like those promos, and I thought they sold whatever feud they were trying to sell very well.
Very good. I think it would have been fine if they would have mixed it up a little bit, like show a match and then do a segment of, backstage reaction style show, then show a match and then do that. Kind of make it like, even if they had to have a magazine style presentation to make it, click, but still had that kind of content. Almost take it back to
you could have shown clips from house shows. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, do it like, remember Primetime before Raw? Because there was actually a show that was on before Raw. Primetime was basically Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan sitting in a studio saying, oh, and by the way, if you missed this action, and they'd pull that up and they'd show a match. Well, the matches were not always from the same arena. They were not even always from the same show. Some of them came from All-American Wrestling. Some of them came from Wrestling Challenge. Some of them came from Superstars. And some of them were new content. And it worked. I liked it, but I don't know if it would work today, but maybe a tweaked version thereof would have been a better way to go with that show than a completely non-wrestling show.
And Primetime was actually, again, I go with the development. Those in-studio spots, you got okay action in wrestling, and you were getting, what you wanted in that respect. But then you get, that's where we found out Mr. Perfect was done living in the shadow of Ric Flair. When him and Heenan are just having a discussion in studio, and it turns into Perfect saying, you know what, maybe I will make a comeback. Maybe I will fight Ric Flair. And I'm talking 92, 93. This is, just before Raw. They were still pumping out great stuff.
Yeah, and that's, I don't think that the answer to going forward is necessarily going to the past, but you can certainly take aspects of what did work in the past and tweak them to fit the modern, presentation of things. And I think that's what I think we were all hoping for at a reaction. And they tried something new. You can't fault them for trying to do something different. And ultimately, I made no effort to watch it. And unfortunately, there was a lot more people like me than like Nick and Patrick who enjoyed it.
Well, and going back, by the way, also on the tangent that I started on this with talking about how I like watching Superstars. I'll watch Superstars. I'll try to go out of my way to see the late shows on it. But at the same time, the guys that I'm watching on that program don't belong in my Royal Rumble.
Oh, boy, and that's kind of a good segue. Now, Patrick, I'm sure you're going to have some opinions on this, and so will Nick. And basically, Nick, we're going to get your opinion, Ben, in just a second. But, Nick, why do you think that there are 40 contestants in the Royal Rumble this year?
Well, because this company has fucking given up on storyline direction. They have nothing set for this pay-per-view outside of title matches. They have no idea. They are so desperate to try to turn around the sinking ship that they have become. And, I mean, people want to say, oh, they're not a sinking ship. Then why did they just fall short of their own projections for their fucking revenue last quarter? Why is their stock price starting to tank? Because this company is panicking, and instead of trying to think of, okay, let's try to do a good mid-card title feud between Ted DiBiase and Daniel Bryan, or Ted DiBiase and Tyson Kidd. Instead, it's just going to be, we'll cram an extra 10 guys in the Royal Rumble. The Rumble always sells, and more is better. Yes, 40 extra people. 40 people. This will work so well. They took a big pile of shit, and they're throwing it against the wall to see what sticks.
You're absolutely correct, too. I mean, it's the greenness in their guys, too. They don't develop the characters, much less the storylines. You look at the guys in this Rumble, and I always do this, to look at, star power of a Rumble. If you were a casual wrestling fan who watches the program once every 3 or 4 months, or you're just the guy who orders the Big Four, or what was the Big Four. I can't even include Survivor Series in that anymore at this rate. You got to watch this program and sit here, and can you honestly tell me you recognize half those names on that list? I mean, you're going to be like, who the hell is Nexus? Who the hell is the Core? Who's Mason Ryan? Who's Darren Young? Who's D.H. Smith? You don't even watch enough to know who he is. I mean, they've obviously, I take their announced roster for the Rumble with a grain of salt because, I mean, substitutions abound all the time, and we're talking surprise entries, but you've got a bunch of guys who aren't experienced enough to carry the load by themselves with a bunch of guys who are already way too over and don't need the experience. It makes for a very, an interesting dichotomy among those who are competing, to me. And the only character who's developed anything for this Royal Rumble match, the only guy who's gotten any story development in the Royal Rumble match is a red herring, and he's not going to win, and that's Alberto Del Rio, who's been cutting the same promo for 4 weeks about how the Rumble is his destiny. He's the only guy who's been given any push, and guess what? He ain't going to win. You might as well name him Triple H in regards to the way that he's a red herring to make you believe he's going to win the Rumble.
Did Triple H ever win a Rumble?
I agree with that.
Yes.
2002.
Yeah, the one when he came back from injury.
When he pedigreed RVD and RVD laid dead for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. And then got thrown up by Booker T, the number 30 entrant.
Yeah.
He does. That happens a lot with Triple H. But what was I going to say? Yeah, the one thing I do like about the 40 entrants, and if they had a stronger roster with more developed characters, they could make it work extremely well. I think they could have a guy like CM Punk or Daniel Bryan, who anybody who followed their independent career knows that they could go a really long time, and I think they could have one of those guys start at number 1, maybe both, have them be number 1 and 2, and have them go all the way to the end, see how long they can go. I don't know what the entrance time is going to be, but if it's 2 minutes,
they're saying a minute and a half. They're saying 90 seconds.
90 seconds, okay, but yeah,
it's not bad. I mean, it's got to be. It can't be 2 minutes, otherwise that's an hour and 20 minutes just for guys coming down.
Well, I ran the mathematics on 90 seconds for 40 guys. It'll take them 57 minutes to fill the ring if they actually went with that. On the old 30-man every 2-minute format, it took 56 minutes. So it's not necessarily that much worse number-wise.
And let's not forget, this is a thin card. I mean, quite honestly, the best thing they have going for it is the Rumble. We're going to show up on Sunday, and I guess they're just going to randomly send people out to have matches before the Rumble begins.
They might. I mean, I'm looking at the card right now, and it's just they got the 2 title matches, the Rumble, which I assumed was going to go an hour and a half because they've got nothing else signed for the show.
Well, I mean,
they signed Natalya versus Laycool again. I don't care, but I thought the feud was supposed to be Natalya and Melina. What happened there?
Well, what probably
Melina turned on her.
No, what happened was Mark had to sleep in the guest room over a weekend, He called Vince on Monday, got his wife back in the title picture.
Oh.
And I don't fucking care who emails me about how fucking hard she works. That is the reason she is over. That is the reason she gets title pictures, the title shots. She married The Undertaker.
Yep.
It's definitely the reason why she got the opportunities. I mean, you take a look at her work and then look at somebody like Natalya who finally got her chance. You can't.
And I mean, there's not a real wrestling fan out there that's not happy that she made it because she's just incredible.
Right.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, they have the talent. They do have, I mean, they got Gail Kim and Natalya. I bet if you give them 15, 20 minutes, they can put on a hell of a match. But unfortunately,
and they've got Awesome Kong on the way.
Yeah, and we've all seen.
So
Kong
on paper, they should have
Gail
a core, strong women's division.
But they also have a lot of talent that really can't work. And you know what? I've been doing an experiment of late, and I've been watching some of the WWE stuff with my son, as well as the TNA stuff. And Nick, you'll be happy to know that he actually prefers TNA.
Because you're raising a good child.
He does. He prefers TNA. He said, if I had to choose, I'd choose TNA. But we watched Raw, and he says he doesn't like watching the women's matches on Raw because all they do is slap and pull hair. And unfortunately, he's somewhat right. Unless it is a Natalya or a Gail Kim or even a Beth Phoenix match, it is going to be a lot of just hair pulling and slapping and badly done attempts at high spots.
We got to get your son on this show sometime.
He wouldn't get the lingo, but yeah. And he said this about SmackDown, by the way. Oh, not SmackDown. It was actually Raw that he said this about. His question was, why are all these matches so short? So I was like, wow. That's
why are all the Jerry Lawler matches like 2 segments long? I keep trying to figure that one out.
And then he said this, and this was a SmackDown comment, and you guys might like this one too. He said what I've always thought but never said, I don't think I did bring to the air. He said, so wait a minute, this guy just got beat, but now that he got beat, he's so mad that he can beat up the guy who just beat him. Why didn't he just beat him up in the match?
I think what we've learned tonight is the future of wrestling is bleak. The future of this show is apparently very good because if James ever retires, he'll just hand it off to his son.
There you go. I mean, I think those were very fair points, and this is from somebody who, is not a huge wrestling fan. He knows very little. He watches some of the old DVDs when I have them on, but he doesn't. He's not a huge wrestling fan, but he seems to have a pretty good grasp on it.
Oh, James, your son Nick is only like 9 years old, right?
He's 9. Yeah, he'll be 10 in May. Yeah.
I would rather he try to write Raw and SmackDown than I believe the 30 to 40-year-olds they have currently writing it, because it seems like your son would actually come up with some decent ideas.
Well, I mean, it was a fair point though when this happened, and the only thing that happened that was good on SmackDown was the Cody Rhodes breaking his nose stuff. That was pretty actually good, and I have a feeling that happened for real, and they just ran with it. But I mean, what we watched, he pretty much nailed it. And he said, why is it that every match the bad guy wins and the good guy attacks him after the match, or vice versa? And it's like, well, if they're able to beat them up, why didn't they just win the match? I don't get it. I think these are fair points.
Fair question.
Yeah. All righty, guys. Well, I do want to do some Rumble picks. So we do have to, even though we have a light card, let's see what we can predict before we get to the Rumble match. Edge versus Vicky Guerrero with her acting performer of Dolph Ziggler for the world title. What do you guys think?
I'll start. I don't mind. I got to be honest with you. The one reason, and you guys keep telling me this isn't a compelling card, this match could be a lot more compelling if they had done anything to put Dolph Ziggler over any of the opponents he's wrestled in the last 3 weeks. But he has cleanly jobbed to Cena a couple of times and to Orton. And the fact of the matter is, if you would put him over even once, he's a stronger candidate. There is no chance he wins this match unless it's by disqualification, which wouldn't surprise me. But they had a chance to make another star. And I mean, this is the guy who, never forget, this was Nikki in the Spirit Squad. This guy had no business headlining anything, much less the Royal Rumble in some form. So while I'll pick Edge, I'll say that I'm just happy to see Ziggler in the main event, honestly.
Yeah. That's kind of my attitude. Well, I love Ziggler as a talent. I know James and I, we've been putting him over for a long time now as a great talent. I just don't like the way that they set this match up. I feel like it was rushed. And I agree, they did absolutely nothing to make me believe that he belongs on this level. What I think will happen, I think Edge and Ziggler will go out there and they'll have a really good match in spite of everything. And it's just a shame that they didn't have to build up to accompany what should be a really good match. I want to say Edge winning is an easy pick, but then again, when I look at the past with things like Jack Swagger and Sheamus and shock title wins like that, I mean, WWE, they'll put the belt on anybody. They're like at the drop of a hat.
It wouldn't make sense for them to put it on Ziggler, and that's why I say they're going to put it on Ziggler. Because he's not ready for it yet, and Lord knows he will be, because he's a hell of a talent. But he's not there yet, and that is why I think they'll put it on him, and that's unfortunate. I mean, you could hear him even on Raw.
On the show. I'll make my point later. Go ahead, James.
I'm sorry, Pat. I was going to say, even on Raw, you know, he would start saying something, and he would almost sound, while doing commentary, he'd call commentary on Raw for those who didn't see it, he would say something that would be almost insulting, and then he'd back away from it like he was afraid he wasn't supposed to say that. And it was like, well, just have the confidence and run with it. He did do one thing which I really liked, which is the old concept that seemed to be lost for many years, is that if you listen to Bobby Heenan and all them when they were heel commentators, yes, they would take pot shots at the silly gimmicks and they would take pot shots at the opponents, but they would stress that this person is the best in the business today, and therefore if their guy beat him, they would be the best in the business today. And that is what Dolph did do. He kept putting over how good Edge is, not just how good he was, and that if he was able to beat him, that he would be the best in the business. And, you know, that is one thing he did well, but everything else he just kind of shied away from saying.
I'm going to make it a clean sweep here and just say that I agree with all of you, where Dolph's a great potential talent, but there has not been the build necessary to make me buy that he belongs as a world champion. I've even said this. The feud is not Edge versus Ziggler. The feud is basically Edge versus Vicky. That's it. I'm going to have to go with Ben on this and say that Edge will retain the title, but you know what? It would not surprise me if they do it in a way and then they keep Ziggler in the title picture for the upcoming Elimination Chamber pay-per-view.
Yeah. Well, anyway, the point that I forgot to make earlier, and I'll make it now, is that we've talked about it on the show before. There's a difference between being ready as a talent and being ready as a character. Ziggler, as a talent, I think he's ready. I mean, he's crisp. He sells really well. Everything he does looks great. As an in-ring talent, he's fine. There's nothing wrong with him. But as a character, he hasn't been handled all that well. And that falls on creative. It has nothing to do with him.
I will ask you this, though, and I'm going to ask Benya because I don't think we've discussed him before. Ben, when you watch Dolph Ziggler work, who does he remind you of?
Look-wise, he looks like Tommy Rich.
That's true. That is true.
I had to throw that out there.
A young Tommy Rich. Yeah, you're right. Not the big Don fat guy from the FBI ECW days.
No. I see a lot of Kurt Hennig.
There you go.
The way that I watch Dolph Ziggler work, I see a lot of Kurt Hennig more than anything. The style, the bravado, the execution of the moves. It's very swift and cunning, but at the same time, it's got a certain swagger to it that I think a lot of guys are missing.
I agree. That's what I've been saying since basically the first time I saw him.
He's a jobber.
If you would have told me from the get-go that Dolph Ziggler was Hennig's son, I would have believed it because he is just so good, and he does remind me so much of him.
His first match on Raw was against Batista, and I remember watching it and just watching Batista kick the crap out of him for about 5 minutes, but it wasn't a bad match either. This was still in the doghouse phase where he was being punished for the wellness violation. And he looked so much more, he looked way beyond what I think someone like Batista was ready to handle from that level of character. You didn't expect to see him perform that well on his own at all. Part of it was because he still had to break the Spirit Squad stigma, of which we really didn't see any of those guys, save for one who got a push that he never really deserved, break out. We never saw a whole lot from those guys as anything but a unit. So to see one of them perform well individually was a little bit, I was taken aback by it initially. And now you look at him, and he's one of their top 10, without a doubt, top 10 performers that they have right now.
That's I would agree with that entirely. Which one with the Spirit Squad was he?
He was Nicky. He was Nicky.
Nicky, that's right.
Of the Spirit
Okay.
Squad. He was the one who was not Kenny Dykstra, who didn't get pushed. He didn't do the stupid dance, so he wasn't Mikey. He actually wrestled, so he wasn't Mitch. And he didn't get his nose broken in 5 minutes by DX, so he wasn't Johnny. I hope that's helpful.
That pretty much levels it out, yeah.
I mean,
by the way, if this hasn't been posted on the newsline about 1,000 times, Nick, that's not a shot at you. That's a shot at every site out there. They called him Kenny Dykstra because he was a big fan of Lenny Dykstra, the former New York Met and Philadelphia Philly. I'm sorry, I have to throw that out there. Every 2 seconds, somebody was posting on every wrestling website as if it were news that is why he chose that name. And it's like, I got it the first time you told me. Why are you telling me like 35 times? But that's just my gripe. I was getting pissed off by that point. But then they released him, so that went away real quick.
Wasn't he engaged to Mickie James?
He was engaged to Mickie James. He was indeed.
He blew it.
Bastard missed out. Oh, yeah, damn right he did.
He blew it.
I'm free, Mickey. Not really, but I'll take you anyway.
So Patrick has the old Mitch Hedberg line going right now. He doesn't have a girlfriend. He just knows somebody who'd be real mad if he heard him say that.
Yes, exactly.
Alrighty, and I guess the other world title picture right now is going to be The Miz defending against Randy Orton.
All right, well, I'll start on this one. In terms of storyline, this is just a warmed-over rematch from the last pay-per-view. There really has, out of nowhere, it seemed like Randy Orton got back in the title picture. We all had our fingers crossed at the beginning of the month or the build the Rumble, thinking it was going to be John Morrison. And unfortunately, Lawler has pretty much become Miz's rival there for a while, so this storyline is not interesting me at all. It's basically just a rematch that we were past. As for a winner, I'm going to say Miz will retain because I think now that they basically have no other choice, it will come down to Miz versus Cena at WrestleMania.
Ugh. I'll go one step further on this one and tell you that the whole hope, James, you know full well I've said this for a little over a year, and it's one of those things that people get mad at me for saying, but to this point I still look like a freaking genius for saying it, and I'll keep saying it. The reason that we're getting this match is because John Morrison will never be a world champion, ever. He will never, and you know what, the sooner people get over it, the better. I don't mind if I have to eat my words down the road about this, because again, every time he gets pushed, he's not there. He's not at that level. They had a spectacular match on Raw, Miz and Morrison did, and they have a very good built-in feud, but it doesn't matter, because we're not the ones making the decisions, and we're still very much in the minority of the fact that the honest-to-God most over face they have that isn't named John Cena is Randy Orton. And I have no idea why. I really still don't get the mystique and the appeal of Orton other than I have seen him grow from this snot-nosed little kid who took craps in girls' bags to a consummate professional who is willing to put younger guys over him. And I think they're trying to legitimize. I agree that I think you're trying to see Miz keep the title till at least Chamber, where they can, I guess, take it off him with more dignity. But I think you're going to see Orton do another respectful job to try and keep Miz over as an actual main event player. And that's why I'll pick Miz and then just go off on my little Morrison tangent that I would love to see Morrison win the Royal Rumble match, but he's not going to. He's not going to win Money in the Bank. He's never going to win a title. He doesn't have it. For some reason, he doesn't. He does have everything we want, but he doesn't have what they want, and that's the difference.
You said he doesn't have it. Is that your opinion, or you think that's just their opinion of him?
Oh, no. I've been on the... James, I've been on the Morrison bandwagon since Vengeance of 2006. Nitro, Carlito, and Shelton Benjamin in a three-way for the Intercontinental title. I've been on his bandwagon from that day. And from then, I've watched all of his feuds. I've watched almost all his matches. And I believe that this kid was going to be the next Shawn Michaels. I thought he had everything.
Yeah, and that's another one. That's another one. Talk about missed opportunities. There was a match where they won. Nitro, Eminem, beat Shawn Michaels in a match when he used a super kick, and they didn't go with it. They didn't do anything with it. He used the super kick, and that was it. Yeah. They didn't, they had a real easy feud right there. You can almost see the young rocker look in Morrison going against Michaels. It was built in. If he would have started using the super kick as a finisher, there's the reason they feud. That's my move. Very easy, very simplistic, but it worked. And for some reason, they ran out of there. They ran out of there like they just robbed a bank. I don't know why.
Who would have ever thought that Morrison would be the Jannetty of that tag team?
I know, it's insane. It's crazy, but to build off of that, I completely agree with Ben. Regardless of what we say about Morrison, and Lord knows, I've said since probably 08, 09 that he's probably my favorite wrestler to watch in the WWE, just for the in-ring action and the effort that he puts into his matches. But they have just screwed him up time and time again to the point that when they screwed him up in 09 where he was just getting pushed and it looked like he was going to be the Mania contender, and then he lost the IC title to Drew McIntyre and then dropped off the planet, I knew it's like they don't have a plan for this guy. He's just going to be a really good worker at that level for the rest of his career, and that's it. And it's a shame. And the fact that they rushed that Miz Morrison match to Raw and deprived us of what could have been a really good pay-per-view match, I don't know. It's a shame. And as for Miz and Orton, I can't say I really care. I think it's going to be Orton and Cena at Mania. And not that I want it, I just think that that's what they're going to go for. So
Yippee.
I can see Orton winning the title. Yeah, I can see Orton winning the title here, but I think they may hold it off for another month. He'll win it at Elimination Chamber.
I think Miz keeps it here because they've got so much built into him being the champion right now. I mean, they got the announcer basically being his cheerleader. You got the announcers both have strong opinions on the champion right now. I don't see them taking it off him right now, and I think they'll keep him as a strong champion. I would say into Mania. I do think it will probably be Cena and Miz, but then again, that's logical booking, and that's not what we're dealing with right now. So who knows? And then we got the Rumble match itself, and you got everybody in it. And I think the logical pick would be John Cena, but who knows?
Well, who else is going to be it? Can anybody name me another guy?
On this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at who they have, and they don't even have all 40 guys listed yet. I'm thinking it has to be Cena. There's no one else that I can see who's a strong enough character, who's been built up well enough. We talked about it at the start of the discussion. There's nobody on here that's really a strong enough contender except for John Cena, who I can honestly see winning the Rumble, unless Triple H makes a surprise return, which I would be so happy if that happened.
Hey, I'm going to main event again.
Well,
Steph, get my Conan the Barbarian gear out. It's time to make an entrance.
We gotta push the chaperone.
The thing about this, and you know me, I'm the Royal Rumble aficionado. I'm the guy who looks at every year and does some stupid statistic and runs, something. This year I've run a bunch of different things about lost Rumble entrants, and I'm doing a big thing about red herrings in the upcoming weeks, and I'm trying to, look at it from every angle. And regardless of who gets announced, I think that this is a blessing in disguise, this Royal Rumble match. Yeah, I can see Cena winning. I can very easily see Cena winning. And the fact that I can't see anyone outside of him winning is, to me, a good thing. I'm not going to be unhappy if Cena wins. If Cena wins, it's what I thought was going to happen. But if somebody else wins, then I'm pleasantly surprised. And I'm happy. And I mean if anybody else wins, I'm surprised, because I think the best part about this Royal Rumble is also the worst. It's incredibly unpredictable who could and could not, come away with it. I said flat out, I think Del Rio's a red herring and he's not going to win. I still believe that, but would I like to see him win? Hell yeah, I would. I'd love to see Morrison win. I'd love to see Sheamus win. I mean, because these guys are in that category that it could put them over the hump. You never know. Outside, if I had to make a pick, though, and I guess I will, I'm going to play it safe and stick to the guns and say John Cena wins this Royal Rumble match. But I'm not unhappy if CM Punk wins. I'm not unhappy if Wade Barrett wins. Either one of them is a viable option. I mean, this could be a repeat of the 2009 Rumble, wherein Legacy helps Orton win the match for either Punk's Nexus or Wade Barrett's trademarked core. I say trademark because you can't trademark the term the core, so you have to add a ridiculous second R to the word.
The Corey.
I really thought they should have just called him Suxon, which is what you spell Nexus backwards. Suxon. I thought that would have been a good idea.
How about rejects us?
That's not a bad idea.
Or the 4-pack.
I enjoy that. Yeah, Wolfpack. That's what James and I were going over a few days ago.
Yeah,
they should have called them 3 immigrants and a ginger.
That sounds like a bad 80s comedy movie.
Or a sitcom on CBS.
That's a true point, yeah. By the way, they're making another one of those. 3 Men and a Little Baby movie.
Is it going to star Will Smith and his kids?
No, it's actually going to be the 3 guys.
Wait a minute. They're actually going to get the, Ted Danson, Tom Selleck, and what's his face?
The other guy.
Yeah.
Gutenberg?
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
They're getting them together again. They're getting the band back together to do one 22 years later? 23 years later, something like that?
People still remember that movie besides us?
No, I mean, I guess somebody might. By the way, the Ghostbusters.
I'm still waiting for Ghostbusters to make a comeback, and this
they're not doing it. They're nixing that idea, by the way.
Bill Murray.
Bill Murray will not do it.
Oh, you can't really do it without him.
Do you really want to see the Ghostbusters pulling on those, those coats again and trying to, make jokes that, were funny in the 80s but won't be funny this time around, especially in a modern era Hollywood, which seems to take every old script and make it into a stupid comedy starring one of the American Pie rejects?
Well, one approach that I thought was interesting is that there were rumors that they were going to use this movie to train the next generation of Ghostbusters. And I thought it would be kind of cool if they got the old Ghostbusters like Aykroyd, Ramis, and Murray, and the other guy whose name escapes me at the moment.
Winston, but I don't remember who he was.
Yeah,
Ernie Hudson.
Ernie Hudson.
There you go.
There we go.
The guy, the likable black guy who dies and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, except Ghostbusters and The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. But
he didn't die in The Crow either.
He lives in Congo.
No.
There you go. Alrighty, guys, I'm going to jump.
But anyway, they could have gotten Simon Pegg and maybe Seth Rogen and a bunch of modern comedy stars to be the next generation of Ghostbusters that are trained under their wing. I thought that would have been pretty cool.
I think that was what the script was, because that was what Dan Aykroyd wanted it to continue. He wanted it to be, become its own series that can continue throughout the years. But Bill Murray just won't do it. He just apparently flat out refusing to do it. What about Bob? However, he accepted. But the latest Ghostbusters, nope, won't do it.
Didn't Bill Murray though voice Ghostbusters in a video game recently?
Yes. I have the game and it sucks.
Really? I heard it was really good.
If you played the NES version, it tries to be a spin-off of that, the NES game.
Well, that game's horrible.
That game, I liked it, but it's the same concept, and yeah, it doesn't hold up.
That game's terrible, dude. The original NES. How did you get up the staircase?
You didn't. I did once, and I was so disappointed to see what Zool was.
Well, it's supposed to be Gozer.
Oh, that's right. That's right. What am I talking about? Yeah, it was pretty disappointing when you got to the top.
Well, in the game they called her Zool, but they made a boo-boo. It's supposed to be Gozer.
I knew it was Zool. I don't fucking know. It's Ghostbusters talk.
Shows how, ladies and gentlemen, James and Patrick are arguing over the NES Ghostbusters game.
Hey, we argued also about who was the final guy in the WCW video game when it would turn out to be a blue version of Andre the Giant.
At least that was
so Andre the Giant if he were from Avatar.
Yes.
At least it have wrestling merit. That makes a little more sense. I mean, at this point, you're borderline in trouble.
Alrighty, guys. Well, I'm going to bounce, guys. Next week, we got a couple things coming up. I do want to announce that we have Bruce Hart coming on pretty soon. I will announce that one for you guys. So that'll be a pretty interesting interview. If you haven't seen his new book, you do want to check that out. He pulls no punches. He actually, in the book, I've just thumbed through a little bit of it. He says that it was a real shame about Bret Hart. He became a complete mark for himself.
Oh. Uh-oh. Buy this book.
Really? That got you, didn't it?
Well, no, because I was afraid what it was going to be was him probably kissing Bret's ass so Bret would get him a job with the WWE.
And
if I wanted to read a book about how great Bret Hart is, I just buy Bret's book, which is basically, from what I understand...
That's what he says. He says in the book that his book was basically just him kissing his own ass.
Yeah.
So it's brutal.
I think my favorite story in the Bret Hart book is where he talks about how Shawn dropped the title before WrestleMania 13 and, you know, the whole I lost my smile speech. And Bret tells a story about him, Undertaker, and Psycho Sid are sitting in a room, and they're told that Shawn's going to drop the belt without actually losing it. And they all are like, oh, he's lying. He's full of bullshit. None of this is true. So the three of them, Bret marches down the hallway with Sid on his left and Undertaker on his right. They march over to Vince's office to get an explanation for what happened. And I don't know why, but the picture of Bret, Sid, and Undertaker marching down a hallway to go confront Vince is a pretty hysterical visual.
It is. You got... It really doesn't seem like Sid would be well liked by those two guys.
Sid got in a little bit of trouble.
A little bit of it. Stab on Anderson once.
No, he just got arrested for the whole pot thing though too.
Yeah. That's
what happened with Ric Flair? Is he still stranded in Dublin, or what's the deal there?
Apparently, up in Scotland.
Say what?
They, I guess they want to keep him on the tour. They've had to tweak it a couple times already with AJ getting hurt and Kurt Angle having to go home because his wife, well, not his wife, his fiance gave birth prematurely. So, like, well, God, we don't want to piss people off by constantly readjusting this tour, so we're going to try to keep Rick around.
Right. Yeah, by the way, that Kurt Angle headline that he got pulled from the European tour was one of the most misleading lines I've ever seen in wrestling news ever. I thought, when I first read the headline, first thing that popped into my mind was, oh, God, what'd he do? And I read the story, it's like, oh, well, he didn't get pulled, he pulled himself
well,
to take care of a family emergency.
Yeah, I thought he got hurt.
By the way, I hear everything's okay now, so congratulations to Kurt and his fiance for having a new kid, and I'm glad everything is apparently okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, congratulations. Fortunately, I guess that's kind of bad news for fans for European TNA fans that were looking forward to seeing Kurt live for the first time.
Right.
TNA.
So what happened with Flair that caused this whole blow-up?
He was asking for money up front. He pulled an Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah. Well, apparently what some people are saying is that they've been out partying on this tour, and Ric Flair, being Ric Flair, likes to still play the Nature Boy. Well, apparently I'm hearing that his credit card got declined, and he started asking for money up front. Well, the guy from management said, Rick, I can't do that. Rick got pissed off, threatened to leave, and they left him behind in Ireland.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the kind of I know James praised TNA when he says they basically made an example out of Diamond Dallas Page in 2005 when he refused to job somebody. So they said, all right, bye, you're not on board. And I think TNA should take that kind of attitude where, okay, if you're not on board with us and you're going to try and stir shit for us, then all right, we'll leave you here in Dublin. All right, bye. We don't give in to temper tantrums, and I wish TNA would have that mindset more often.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, for some people, this would be a low. Being so drunk that you piss off management and get left behind on a wrestling tour. For Ric Flair, this is an average Tuesday.
I mean, on that note, gentlemen, I think I'm going to leave you for the evening. I've got to pack some things and get some food. So,
all right, man. Thank you for coming on with us.
Good talk. Thank you for having me on. I'm sure I'll return the next time. It's of great. I'll be at WrestleMania this year for the second year in a row, so I can report live from the scene about the fantastic Randy Orton John Cena main event that I'm apparently going to get. That's just great.
I just have a feeling that that's what it's going to be.
And this, by the way, one last thing about that. I have a feeling you're going to see Cena win the Rumble, and you're going to see Punk win at Elimination Chamber, and that they're try and do this Nexus Cena thing for a few more months.
Well, that's a game.
That's just a thought. Oh.
Well, at the rate they're going with Nexus, it will last another 10 years.
It'll be the new NWO.
Can we get a Nexus Latino version, please? Spearheaded by Eric Can we go rehire Eric Escobar and have him spearhead the Latino Nexus?
Well,
Alberto Del Rio could be the leader.
Yeah, there you go.
Very, very, very slight SmackDown spoiler. On SmackDown, they taped a segment where Del Rio introduces himself to Michael Tarver, who is a former Nexus member.
Oh, Lord. I'm going to kill myself.
And on that charming note, thanks again, Ben, for being with us. And enjoy your trip. Where are you going?
I'm coming back to Arizona. I'm flying back in the morning from Orlando. So it's about 7 hours in the air, but it'll only take like 4 because I will get a bunch of hours back since I'm going to the West Coast. So it should all work out nicely, I think.
All right, well, enjoy the nap because I'm sure you're going to be doing lots of sleeping up there.
Oh yeah, bright and early tomorrow morning. So I will see you guys all later. Thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Ben.
Bye.
Okay, I think he's off the line. All right, that was Ben Benya, a wonderful special guest, former co-host of James Walsh. It's always great having him on with us.
Yeah, Ben is basically the one former co-host who doesn't do a show regularly that James is never falling out with.
I know. There was also some other guy. I forget his name. Brandon, I think. Brandon Brooks, whoever the third host was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Brooks.
Of course, we all know about Chuck D. and Eric Clancy and Matt Hoover and all the wonderful relationships that James has made over the years.
Yeah. Trust me, I know it's like when Eric Clancy gets...
What'd you say?
I know it's like to have Eric Clancy pissed off at you.
I mean, Eric's a cool guy. I still talk to Eric. He's cool to me. We're still on good terms. But him and James, man, they just butted heads all the time.
Yeah, well, Patrick, you're probably the most likable, easygoing guy I've ever talked to. So I can see where you could get along with Eric because you just don't get mad about anything.
Yeah, I'll say this. Out of all the hosts that have ever worked on this site, all of them, the only one who I've ever not gotten along with, shall we say, is Matt Hoover. The only one. And he was just annoying.
I never got to know Matt, so I'll consider myself lucky.
Yeah. You've never had him call you at 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
Which apparently was a regular. He only did it to me once, but it was a regular thing with James.
Yeah. Well, no, I used to have, and I'm not trying to trash Eric, but I used to have Eric call me at different times, which kind of becomes annoying because I work overnight, so I used to just leave my cell phone on because no one ever calls me, and then I start getting calls like at 11:30 from him, and I'm like, I'm trying to sleep.
Crazy Eric.
And then like he started calling me like at 12:30 at night when I was at work.
Did he sleep?
I think what was happening was at the time he was working a job, so he would just be getting off and he'd be heading for home.
Oh, okay.
So I guess I figured out stuff. I might as well talk wrestling with him.
Yeah. Oh well.
Anyway,
enough about the past of the Wrestling Epicenter. What other news and notes are there to talk about wrestling related this week? We've already covered the Rumble, which was obviously the big part of the discussion. We covered Ric Flair being abandoned in Europe, which is, again, pretty funny. But, what else is there?
Well, I think what we kind of should talk about a little bit, was I hinted at it earlier, it's the money shortage, apparently, in the WWE.
Yeah, they're not doing very well, are they? And I keep hearing news that the wrestlers are scared for their jobs at this point.
Well, I can't really say it, Blaine. What basically happened was that in all these companies, like the WWE, that are publicly traded, they make projections on what they're going to make each quarter. WWE came up short. And unfortunately, after that came out, the public stock price started going down, 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 often like how Michelle McCool got her title opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, this is no surprise. I mean, we've been talking about this. Pay-per-view numbers are down. Attendance is down. Ratings are stagnant. There's just no success going on in the WWE right now. As far as the numbers go, that would lead us to believe that they're doing well. And this news comes as no surprise. WrestleMania even has taken a hit the last couple of years. They hit under 1 million buys the last 2 years, which, that used to be a guaranteed big hit, and it's not anymore.
I think it's another thing, Patrick. For the last couple of years, they've been putting in the numbers from like overseas business, and that for the longest time they didn't use that a whole lot. And now they started using the overseas business as a crutch to pump up the numbers overall. Well, now this tells me that they're not making as much money from that overseas business, too. And that's got to be the real problem here, because now the crutch can no longer be stood on. And you know what? Wrestlers are worried for their jobs. I can't say I blame them, because you know what? We could see another Black Friday where 20 guys get cut. And I'll say this right now. The guys that get cut will not be Kane.
Yeah, the guys who've been there forever, they'll get protected, unfortunately. It'll be the low-card guys. It'll be guys like, you would think a lot of the guys in the Nexus and the Core who are just, interchangeable. You could put anybody in those roles.
Maybe, but, I see kind of a situation where, unfortunately, it will be the guys that never really got their opportunity. I could see an example like Zack Ryder, who I like. And I'm not saying Zack Ryder is the next world champion, but if they would actually put some time and effort into building this guy, we could have a decent Intercontinental champion or a decent U.S. champion. Unfortunately, I think Zack Ryder will be saying, no, I'm unemployed.
Yeah, it's and we talked about it with Tyson Kidd. They had a chance to make something out of him with that promo against Daniel Bryan, that backstage segment. Just watch me, and he goes out there and loses. It's like, well, all right. And they keep putting Mark Henry over guys. I keep seeing Mark Henry win matches, which I'm not.
Yeah.
I can't believe that they're still trying to pump life into this guy. 15 years. 15 years that they put into Mark Henry, and has he paid off at all?
Look, the guy was counted as like their next big superstar. They gave this guy a 10-year contract at one point. And they for years they have tried over and over again various gimmicks: Olympic strongman, world's strongest man, silverback gorilla, sexual chocolate. And
that was his best one, just because it was funny.
Yeah,
and they even managed to ruin that by making it not funny.
Yeah, but when he starts talking about how he had sex with his sister and stuff, and gets a blowjob from a transvestite, the fun little gimmick kind of starts becoming very disturbing.
Yeah.
But I mean, they tried all this stuff, and he remains on the payroll. I mean, here's the thing, at least, and I hate Kane, but at least they can somewhat justify Kane because he has some name value. I can't say that Mark Henry has name value.
No. And even if you want to play off his Olympic background, that was years ago. It's over.
I mean,
nobody remembers him from that.
And he wasn't
even
even
win a medal like Kurt did, so.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like he's Kurt Angle or Roland Gardner, who's on The Biggest Loser, where he actually won the medal. I mean, he went to the Olympics and he didn't win anything. And oh God, yeah. So Mark Henry will probably keep his job. But, we'll probably see guys like Isaiah, like Trent Barretta, who's kind of got in this little mini push on SmackDown. I think has potential. It wouldn't surprise me if he gets cut, even though he's getting a little mini push. Because sometimes that, unfortunately, it seems how it goes. Like you'll get some little last minute push, and it seems like that just reminds the bean counters that you're on payroll, and then they're like, why is he still on payroll? He's gone.
Yeah, I mean, they do this a lot. They stop guys way too much, and, going into this Rumble, that's why they don't have that many credible stars that we believe could actually win the Rumble, and that's a problem. I mean, on paper, I should be able to think, okay, Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, John Morrison, Sheamus, a lot of those type of guys, I should believe that they have a legit shot at winning the Rumble. But I don't.
Yeah. I mean,
they're just not on that level.
It's either going to be John Cena, or it will be a surprise like Triple H or The Undertaker coming back.
Which I would hate so much. Oh, God, if I hear that music, it's time to play the game.
If I hear either.
Oh, God.
Like, and I don't want him to do it, but the only, surprise that I could actually get somewhat excited about would be Shawn Michaels. If he, I sat at home and I was thinking, first ever Hall of Famer to win the world title at WrestleMania. That could at least be somewhat cool, but but I'm not saying that they should do that. Unfortunately, now that I have said it, that may become the plan. Because they do it like...
I'll be honest, that might be better than whatever plan they had to be... If we're being serious, because, again, looking ahead to Mania, I don't see anything that interests me that much.
Yeah. You know what? No, they should do that. Bring Shawn in, have him say, you know what? I know I retired, but I didn't say how long I would stay retired. And I think it'd be kind of cool to go into the Hall of Fame as the world champion. Yeah, and then you have Undertaker, he's probably going to work with Wade Barrett, which I got to be honest, I have no desire to see that match. Yeah. I think from what I understand, it will either be Undertaker versus Barrett, and then they might do new Nexus versus the remainder of Core. Oh, goody. And I guess I would assume we'll see some form of Punk Cena or Punk somebody big. Yeah. Yeah. So you're going to do Nexus versus the Core, but the two leaders aren't going to be in the match. Yeah. I've heard rumors. Again, these are just rumors. Take the internet with a grain of salt. I mean, this is the same internet that said the X Division was going to die, and yeah, it's not. I've heard reports that the Nexus Core storyline is going to go into next summer, which I'm like, oh dear God. I mean, be careful what you wish for. It's like, yeah, I want long storylines, but not that one, please. Well, you know what? It's like we always say around here. WWE has this ass backwards way of giving us what we want. We want younger stars, so they rush the Nexus, who clearly aren't ready for the most part, into the main event. I mean, I like Wade Barrett, but he's got potential. That does not mean that he should be main eventing WrestleMania or challenging for the WWE title. Mm-hmm. We say we want long storylines, so they keep dragging the goddamn Nexus storyline out. It's like, look, we want good long storylines. This story has repeatedly reached the point where you could say, okay, it's over, time to walk away. And it's like, no, Nexus is back, only now it's with CM Punk.
Which, again, we all want Punk to get a push, but they've just stuck him with a dying concept.
Yeah. I will say this, though. It was kind of cool to see Ahmed Johnson's bastard son face-to-face with Steve Blackman and Batista's love child.
I need to see this guy. I haven't even seen a picture of him.
Watch Raw on Monday, or go to WWE.com. Trust me, he does look like Steve Blackman had a child with Batista.
Wow. And he's from England, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. Which, by the way, Patrick,
so he's kind of like...
Patrick, I do think WWE is listening to us because now they're negotiating with Dog the Bounty Hunter. And as I often say, Tamina looks like the women that Dog has to go get and bring back into jail. I think
if they do that, I will mail you a cookie. If they actually do that.
If they do it, I may just forgive them for all the crap they've given us for the past couple of years. If I see Dr.
Speaking of things that the people they're trying to reach out to, I've heard rumors that they're trying to get Kimbo Slice for WrestleMania.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Kimbo, the former internet bum fight king, former Elite XC key roster member, former Ultimate Fighter contender, is going to debut in pro wrestling fighting a former sumo wrestler who got kicked out for doing pots. So, yeah, Kimbo's apparently going into wrestling. I guess now WWE wants him, which a lot of people are saying this would have been a good idea last year when Kimbo still has some name value. Now it's been a year, and people have kind of moved on.
Yeah, you know what? Even when he did have name value, I never saw the appeal in the guy. I'm like, because I saw him on Ultimate Fighter, and everybody talked about Kimbo Slice. And I'm like, okay, look, this guy got knocked out at that was Elite XC, right? He got knocked out by some no-name, right?
Yeah, Seth Petrozelli.
Right, that disastrous show. And then he goes to the Ultimate Fighter, and his first fight, his only fight, I think, he goes out there, and the fat guy just sits on him, and he loses. He's not, like, an impressive fighter, and I keep asking, what is the big deal about this guy? And they're like, oh, he was, like, king of the bum fights or something. Like, well, why the hell would I want? I'm like, okay, I the things that attract people, I guess. You never know.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like anything. Unfortunately, we're in a world where we get viral celebrities. I mean, it's a nice, heartwarming story, but we have a homeless guy that's now doing the announcing for the Cavs because a radio station taped him and he had a really nice voice. That's the fucking world we live in. Homeless people can go from being homeless to apparently minor celebrities.
Oh, Chris Crocker. That guy had his 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy for the homeless people if they can no longer be homeless people. But, it's like that. I'm just saying that's the world we live in.
Certainly.
Yeah. So, apparently Kimbo's role would be he'd be like a special enforcer for the Undertaker's match with Barrett. I guess the idea being to keep Core from interfering. But I'm like, between Kimbo, who's 46 years old, has bum knees, and the Undertaker, if there's ever been a match fit for Medicaid, this is it.
Yeah, it sounds like they kind of did something similar with Chuck Norris back in '94.
But it's didn't seem to fit at all. You have the Undertaker and Chuck Norris.
I don't know. They both had the Western look, I guess.
Yeah, I know, but
there's probably some tie-in with USA. That USA probably had something to do with that because they showed both Walker, Texas Ranger, and WWE Raw.
Yeah, well, Where was that Survivor Series at?
I don't know. I think it was in Texas because I remember the logo had like a steer on it, like a skull of a steer or something like that. And I remember that logo, and so I'm assuming it was in Texas.
Yeah, because I remember that was kind of like a Western themed Survivor Series. So maybe that was it. They figured we'll get the Texas Ranger.
Yeah. Which it's a shame they didn't do it like 8-9 years later when the whole Chuck Norris fact thing became such a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems to be the WWE's history with celebrity involvement. They either do it too late or too soon.
Yeah. Oh, well, what are you going to do? But we are just about out of time here. Is there anything you want to say, Nick, before we go?
I would like to just extend my condolences to the family of Sean Osborne, or Bad Seed Sean Osborne. He was a independent wrestler for a number of years, who also briefly was under the WWE as a developmental talent. Apparently he died today of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. I just want to be one of the many people that are offering their prayers and condolences to his family.
Yes, absolutely. Another sad story for the wrestling business, unfortunately. But on that note, I would like to thank James Walsh for setting up the show with us. Thank you to Kevin Knight for coming on with us for that brief interview. It was always a joy having him on. Thank you to Benya for being our special guest tonight. It's always a blast talking to him. And thank you, Nick, for staying on with me the whole time.
No problem, Patrick.
All righty. Well, until then, we'll see you all next week, same time, same place. For everyone here at the Wrestling Epicenter, I'm saying good night, everybody.